AP World History. I just wanted to finish the Cuban Missile Crisis so you guys know how it ends, know some details, a lot of evidence behind the document. Excuse my voice, but COVID, bro. Okay, so we left off somewhere around here in class, I think. So Kennedy establishes this quarantine to block ships from coming into Cuba via the Soviet Union. And he's already kind of letting Dobrynin know that we knew you were lying in the meeting. Then Dobrynin starts to crack a little bit. He says, oh, there's no missiles in Cuba. Then he kind of has an out, like, well, at least as far as I know. I mean, that's what Khrushchev said. So there's the out right there. And then Bobby told Kennedy, he couldn't tell Gromyko anything he didn't already know. So kind of like this charade that there's no missiles. They're past that now. And the quarantine is in effect. Now, Kennedy's worried about this firm stance. Like, we're drawing a line in the sand, right? And we're literally drawing a line in the Atlantic Ocean. Oh, what if they cross it? See, that's the thing. Are you willing to go to World War III? Since some of this, this balancing act of the Cold War and, the threat of a nuclear holocaust is present with Ukraine. How far is either side willing to go with Ukraine, right, with Putin? You don't want to trigger World War III. So Bobby said, well, we had to do something, or else if you just sat there, you would have been impeached. Now, the military wants to get rid of them. Keep in mind, the military hates this idea. The U.S. military is saying we invade Cuba now. That's protocol. There shouldn't be a discussion. This is a terrible idea. So there's more photos coming in from the U-2 spy planes. These launching pads in Cuba, they're ready for war. Now in the quarantine, there's 2 Russian ships coming. And then these 2 ships, they detect a Russian sub. So this is really bad. So why is a Russian sub escorting these 2 ships? So everyone is feeling like we're on the verge of World War III. If we sink that sub, if we blow up a ship, if we just kill one Soviet sailor on that ship, it could domino into World War III. So it's extremely tense. And the other thing, before I finish this part of the story, is it may seem a little strange to your generation. They don't have cell phones. Again, communication is a huge problem because of the slow communication compared to today. The slow communication almost is a major factor in how we almost went to World War III. The captain of the ship's got to call in to a guy at the Pentagon. He goes to his boss goes to his boss. So these ships stop dead in the water. Some ships turned around. Now Kennedy is giving them every opportunity to turn around. Again, he doesn't want to start World War III, but he doesn't want to be a pushover either. Now, in the meantime, on the diplomatic side of things, Adlai Stevenson, he's the UN ambassador for the United States. Remember when I told you in class, they had those U-2 spy plane photos. They could have brought it out on the meeting with Dobrynin. They could have brought him out with the meeting with Gromyko, but they didn't. Kennedy was waiting to pick his shot. This is his shot. Keep in mind, during the Cold War, you're trying to show the whole world the other guy is the bully. The other guy is the aggressor. So at the United Nations, on national television, Adlai Stevenson confronts Zorin. Zorin's a bulldog. He's the ambassador to the UN for the Soviet Union. And he brings up the missiles in Cuba. Zorin denies that there's missiles in Cuba. And then Adlai Stevenson brings out these huge blown up pictures to show the world. Not only show that there's missiles in Cuba, but also that Zorin is sitting there lying to him. So Stevenson really did a good job. You can YouTube that too. If we were in class, sometimes I show it. But So it's a huge win at the UN from on the diplomatic side of things. So the whole world sees who the aggressor is. The whole world sees who's lying, right? It kind of plays out on national TV. But everyone's freaking out, thinking we're going to war. People are, buying canned foods from the grocery stores. The shelves are empty. People are, a lot of people during this time, instead of buying a cottage up north, they built a bomb shelter in their backyard. If the U.S. invades, it's going to be heavy casualties for the U.S. It's looking more and more likely that Kennedy's going to have to order an invasion of Cuba. He tried the best he could, but it's just getting to that point where there's not going to be any options. And they kind of see where they're just headed for, complete disaster. Khrushchev, and it's a good thing Stalin was dead, that's for sure. Khrushchev is kind of showing Kennedy, even though he kind of bullied him at their meeting in Vienna. Remember that picture I showed you when Kennedy was kind of crashing? Khrushchev's showing he doesn't want to go to, have World War III on his hands either. So he admits there's missiles in Cuba, finally. So this is the first time the Soviet Union admits it. Then Khrushchev says that they're only trying to help Cuba defend itself, that this is defensive. Remember we talked about containment and encirclement? Khrushchev's justifying it by saying this is defensive. And we'd be willing to remove these missiles, actually, if you end the blockade, because there's other goods they want to get to Cuba, end the blockade, and if the U.S. would simply promise to never invade Cuba, we're good. That sounds like a great deal for Kennedy. He can get out of this. But here's what Kennedy was thinking, and this is, he avoids World War III when those two ships stall and eventually turn around. Barely, because there was an instance where they fired some warning shots. They called them, what they call them? I think they call them star shells or something. It's just like a warning. And McNamara was in there watching, representing Kennedy. And he starts screaming, ceasefire, ceasefire. And the admiral's like, Mr. McNamara, relax. Those are just star shells. They're warning shots. You didn't know that because you're not qualified. He was the guy that was at Ford Motor Company over here on Michigan Avenue. He was running Ford. And then McNamara brilliantly tells the admiral, he's like, well, what if Khrushchev makes the same mistake I just did? I thought you were firing. Like, that's how tense this thing got. The deal looks like it's going to be done. And we can get out of this thing. And we can avoid World War III. But then a second letter is sent to Kennedy. And in the second letter, Khrushchev states the U.S. must remove the missiles from Turkey that the U.S. has in Turkey. And there's more information coming in that Cuba is now working day and night on the missile sites. So they're talking deal on one end, but we're seeing that in Cuba, they're ready to go. If we got to go, they're ready to go. So Kennedy goes nuts. If you remember, I told you in class the other day, originally, Kennedy wanted those missiles out in Turkey when he first came into office, before any of this happened. Excuse me. Because he thought this could be compromising. So Kennedy, again, was absolutely right. Because they were obsolete. We had subs in the Mediterranean that the Soviets didn't know about. But anyway, at this point, it was too late anyway. But it just shows that Kennedy was very forward-thinking. Now, this is where it could get a little confusing. Kennedy's stuck now. he cannot withdraw the missiles under a Soviet threat. That'll make him look weak. And it may sound silly in hindsight, but you know, he's thinking about re-election too. He can't come across as weak. But he doesn't want World War III either. So now an airstrike, an official U.S. airstrike is back on the table. And if the U.S. attacks Cuba, more than likely the Soviet Union is going to attack Turkey. And then we'd have to decide if we're going to have a nuclear assault against Soviet Union. This domino effect could come into play. So Kennedy tried this blockade. He tried diplomacy. He finds himself coming right back to where his military generals have been telling him the whole time, we just need to invade Cuba. That's it. There's no other choice. Just to make it worse, a U-2 spy plane is shot down. The pilot's killed. So now we have an American dead. And then it's pretty much agreed we have to attack Cuba in the morning. An American is now dead. An American president can't look that weak. He's going to kill one of our guys and we just sit here, right? So it's looking like World War III. It got so close to World War III that there were guys in the White House that were in the know. They were telling their wives to pack up their kids and just drive north to Canada. And just keep driving north as far as you can. Don't stop. Then Kennedy tells the cabinet, Bobby comes up with this idea that there won't be an attack on Cuba in the morning. We made a proposal. At the midnight hour, Bobby met with a Soviet official at the embassy. The Soviet Union would remove weapons from Cuba, and they would halt any further shipments of weapons into Cuba. The U.S.S.R, Russia, Soviet Union, they agreed to do that. The U.S. would remove the quarantine and give an assurance we'll never invade Cuba again, which we've honored. Even in 2022, we've honored that. But the kicker was this. That second letter, Bobby had an idea. He's like, just ignore it. Pretend we never saw it. Let's agree to the first letter. So they do that. And the Soviets are like, wait a minute, they didn't say anything about Turkey. So it's kind of a slick move on Bobby's part. Then, when Bobby meets with Dobrynin, and again, this is, right before the midnight hour, the Soviets were already burning records. They were ready to go to war. The secret deal is this. Okay, Bobby finally acknowledges that second letter. He says, you want us to remove the missiles in Turkey too? That's kind of a 2-for-1 deal. We're doing two things. You're doing one. We wouldn't usually agree to that. That makes us look weak. But we'll do it in 6 months. And Dobrynin couldn't believe Bobby said this. He's like, really? You'll do it? He goes, yeah, but it's got to be in 6 months, because in 6 months, nobody's going to care. It'll be on page 20 of the New York Times. Nobody's even going to notice. So that is how the Cuban Missile Crisis ends. As far as the world knows, it was a 1-for-1 deal, even though it was 2-for-1. The 1-for-1 deal that the world saw was the U.S. promises to never invade Cuba, and the Soviet Union promises to remove the missiles in Cuba and to stop shipping anymore. Now, the 2-for-1 deal came 6 months later when the U.S. did pull those missiles out of Turkey, but it was 6 months later. That way it looked like the U.S. wanted to do it anyway, and they didn't do it over, from orders of the Soviet Union. All right, guys, good luck tomorrow. You got the Cuban Missile Crisis down. You guys are going to do good. I got a feeling if they give you a decent DBQ, you're going to break some records. Good luck.